What if you sat down on a plane, put your bag in the overhead compartment, buckled your seatbelt, looked out the window, and then the pilot said a city name, a city you had never heard of, a city that was not your destination? Would you panic? Would you stay quiet? Would you pretend nothing happened? Today, that person is you. This is your life. The day you accidentally boarded the wrong airplane. Stay with me, because this story is going to take you somewhere you never ever expected to go. Part 1. The morning everything went wrong. It started as a completely normal Tuesday morning. You woke up at 5:30 a.m. Your alarm was loud. Your eyes were heavy, but you had a flight to catch, so you got up. You had been planning this trip for months. You were flying from New York to Miami. A work conference, very important. Your boss had reminded you 3 times that week. Don't be late. Don't miss this flight. You packed your bag the night before. Toothbrush, laptop, clean clothes, charger. Everything was ready. You called a taxi at 6 a.m. The driver was quiet, which was perfect, because you were still half asleep. You watched the city pass by through the window. Dark streets, yellow lights, early morning silence. You arrived at JFK Airport at 7:15 a.m. Your flight was at 9 a.m. You thought, perfect. I have almost 2 hours. I am early. I am responsible. Everything is under control. You were wrong. Inside the airport, it was busy. Very busy. People were walking fast in every direction. There were long lines at check-in. There were children crying. There was a man arguing loudly at the information desk. The airport was loud and confusing. You checked in online the night before, so you had your boarding pass on your phone. Gate B14, Miami, departure, 9 a.m. You read it once, you put your phone in your pocket, and you walked towards security. Security took 40 minutes. The line was long. A woman in front of you forgot to take off her shoes. The machine beeped 3 times for a man carrying a metal water bottle. Everything was slow. You started to feel nervous. You watched the clock on the wall. By the time you got through security, it was 8:10 a.m. You had 50 minutes. Still okay. Still fine. You found a coffee shop, bought a large coffee and a muffin, and sat down. You checked your phone. You had 3 unread messages, 2 from your boss, 1 from your mom wishing you a safe flight. You ate your muffin. You drank your coffee. You felt better. At 8:30 a.m., you picked up your bag and started walking to gate B14. This is where everything went wrong. Part 2. The mistake you didn't know you were making. The airport was even more crowded now. There were announcements on the speakers every 2 minutes. Flights being called, gates being changed, people being asked to go to different areas. You were walking fast, looking at the signs above your head. B10, B11, B12, and then you heard it. Last call for passengers on flight 447 to boarding now at gate B14. You froze. Last call? But your flight was at 9 a.m. It was only 8:30. You ran. You ran down the long corridor, your bag bouncing on your shoulder, your coffee still in your hand, people moving out of your way. You reached gate B14. There was a line of passengers walking through the door. The gate agent, a young woman in a blue uniform, was scanning boarding passes quickly. The line was moving fast. You joined the back of the line, breathing hard. You pulled out your phone, opened your boarding pass and held it up. The gate agent scanned it. Beep. She handed your phone back, smiled and said, "Welcome aboard." You walked down the jet bridge, found your seat, 22C, put your bag in the overhead compartment, and sat down. You buckled your seatbelt. You took a long, slow breath. I made it, you thought. I'm here. I'm safe. You closed your eyes for just a moment, and then the pilot's voice came through the speakers. "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. Welcome aboard Flight 447, non-stop service to Buenos Aires, Argentina. Our flight time today will be approximately 10 hours and 30 minutes. The weather in Buenos Aires is..." You opened your eyes. Buenos Aires, Argentina. Part 3. The moment of panic. Your heart stopped. No, 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 no. You sat up straight in your seat. You looked around. Everyone else looked calm. A woman across the aisle was already reading a book. A man in front of you was putting on headphones. A little boy near the window was pressing his face against the glass. Was this a dream? You picked up your phone with shaking hands. You opened your boarding pass again. Flight 447, Gate B14, departure 8:45 a.m., destination Miami. Miami. It said Miami, but the pilot said Buenos Aires. You looked around frantically. You pressed the call button above your seat. The small orange light turned on. A flight attendant, a tall man with a calm voice, walked over. "Can I help you?" You tried to speak normally. "Excuse me, where is this flight going?" He smiled. "Buenos Aires, Argentina, sir, ma'am." "Is there a problem?" You stared at him. I think I'm on the wrong plane." The smile on his face changed, not unfriendly but serious now. "Do you have your boarding pass?" You showed him your phone. He looked at it carefully. He looked at you. He looked at the boarding pass again. Then he said something that made your stomach drop. "Sir, ma'am, your boarding pass says Gate B14, but this flight departed from Gate B41. B41, not B14. You had misread the gate number. In your rush, in your panic, you had confused the numbers. And somehow, the gate agent had scanned your pass and let you through without noticing the mistake. You were on a plane to Argentina, and the door was already closed." Part 4, the decision. The flight attendant asked you to come with him to the front of the plane. You walked down the aisle, feeling every single pair of eyes on you. You probably imagined most of them, but your face was burning and your hands were trembling. At the front of the plane, the flight attendant spoke quietly with another crew member. They both looked at your boarding pass. They talked in low voices. You stood there holding your bag, feeling like the most foolish person in the entire world. Then the second crew member, an older woman with kind eyes, turned to you and said, "We are aware of the mistake. Unfortunately, the aircraft door is now sealed, and we cannot allow passengers to exit. We have already pushed back from the gate." You looked out the small window near the front. She was right. The plane was moving. Slowly, slowly, away from the terminal. "What about now?" you asked. She was very calm, very professional. "When we land in Buenos Aires, we will coordinate with the airline. You will be put on the next available flight back to the United States. We will do our best to help you reach Miami as quickly as possible." "When is the next flight?" you asked. She paused. "The next direct flight from Buenos Aires to Miami departs in approximately 22 hours. 22 hours. You sat back down in your seat, 22C, on a plane heading to a country you had never planned to visit, carrying nothing but a laptop, 3 changes of clothes, a phone charger, and a half-eaten muffin. You had one thought: my boss is going to kill me. Part 5, 10 hours over the ocean. For the first 2 hours, you were too shocked to do anything. You just stared at the seat in front of you. Your phone showed 17 unread messages. Your boss, your mom, a colleague asking where you were. You couldn't reply to any of them. Not yet. Not until you figured out what to say. Somewhere over the Caribbean, a strange thing happened. You stopped panicking. Maybe it was the cloud of numbness that comes after a big shock. Maybe it was the soft hum of the airplane engines. Maybe it was because, and you had to admit this slowly, carefully, there was absolutely nothing you could do right now. You were on a plane, over the ocean, going to Argentina. That was simply the truth. And something about accepting the truth, even a terrible, ridiculous truth, made you feel just a little bit lighter. You opened your laptop. You wrote a long, honest, embarrassing email to your boss explaining exactly what happened. You reread it 4 times. Then you pressed send before you could change your mind. Then you opened a new document and wrote something unexpected. You wrote, "Things I know about Buenos Aires." The list was short. The tango dance comes from Buenos Aires. The famous steak. The colorful neighborhood called La Boca. A writer named Jorge Luis Borges was from there. The currency is the Argentine peso. That was everything you knew. You stared at the list. Then you wrote, "Things I want to find out." That list was longer. By hour 6, you had watched 1 movie, eaten 2 meals, the airline food was surprisingly good, drunk 3 cups of tea, and talked briefly with the woman sitting next to you, a retired teacher from Chicago named Barbara, who was visiting her daughter in Buenos Aires. When you told Barbara what had happened, she laughed so hard that the man across the aisle looked over in alarm. "Oh, honey," she said, wiping her eyes, "that is the best travel story I have ever heard." You smiled. Your first real smile since the pilot's announcement. "Is it?" you said. "Are you kidding me?" Barbara said. "Most people go their whole lives and nothing interesting ever happens to them on a plane. You walked onto the wrong continent." "The wrong continent." You laughed too then. You couldn't help it. Part 6. Buenos Aires. The plane landed at Ezeiza International Airport just after midnight, local time. The air outside was warm and humid. South American summer, the opposite season from New York's winter. An airline representative met you at the gate. She was efficient and kind. She explained everything clearly. The airline would cover your hotel for one night. She gave you a food voucher. Your return flight to Miami was booked for the following evening. Not 22 hours, but 18. A little better. She handed you a folder with everything you needed. Hotel confirmation, return flight details, a city map, a city map. You looked at it for a long moment. Then you made a decision. You were not going to sit in a hotel room for 18 hours staring at the ceiling. You were going to see Buenos Aires. Part 7. The city you never planned to visit. You slept for 5 hours at the hotel. At 8 a.m., you were outside on the street with your small bag and your city map, and absolutely no plan. Buenos Aires hit you immediately. The streets were wide and tree-lined. The buildings were old and beautiful, European-style architecture, tall and grand, with balconies covered in flowers. The air smelled like coffee and bread from the bakeries that were already open. People were everywhere, moving fast, talking loudly, laughing. Buenos Aires was a city that felt alive. You walked for 3 hours. You walked through the neighborhood of San Telmo, where the streets were made of old cobblestones and artists were selling paintings on blankets. You stopped at a small cafe and ordered a cortado, a short coffee with a little milk. The waiter said something in Spanish. You smiled and nodded. He smiled back and brought you a small glass of sparkling water too, because that is what they do there. You sat at the table outside and watched the city walk past you, and for the first time in a very long time, you felt something unusual. You felt completely, absolutely present. Not thinking about the conference in Miami, not thinking about emails, not thinking about your schedule, or your boss, or your to-do list. Just here, in this cafe, in this city you never planned to visit, drinking coffee you didn't know you needed. You walked to La Boca and saw the famous colorful houses, bright blue, yellow, red, painted on the old corrugated iron buildings. Children were playing football in the street. A couple danced the tango near a small outdoor stage while tourists stopped to watch. You watched too. You didn't understand the music, but you felt it. The tango is not happy music. It is deep and aching and beautiful. It sounds like something important that cannot be said in words. You thought about your own life for a moment. The routine, the early alarms, the same subway, the same coffee order every morning. Was your life full, or was it just scheduled? A big question for a Tuesday morning in Argentina. Part 8. The Stranger at the Bookshop. In the afternoon, you found a small bookshop in the Palermo neighborhood. It was the kind of bookshop that feels like it has always been there. A little dark inside, shelves that go all the way to the ceiling, the smell of old paper and wood. A cat slept on a stack of books near the door. You went inside because it looked interesting. A man about your age was behind the small wooden counter. He looked up when you entered and said something in Spanish. "Sorry," you said, "I only speak English." He switched immediately, without any hesitation. His English was good, a little formal, but clear. "No problem. Are you looking for something specific?" "No," you said honestly. "I'm just looking. I wasn't actually supposed to be in Buenos Aires." He raised his eyebrows. "Oh?" So you told him the story, the whole thing. The gate numbers, the announcement, the flight attendant, the ocean, Barbara from Chicago, the tango in La Boca. By the end, he was leaning on the counter, completely absorbed. When you finished, he said, "That is a beautiful accident." "Beautiful," you said. "I missed my work conference." "Yes," he said, "but you are here." His name was Mateo. He had studied literature at the university and now ran his father's bookshop. He had never left Argentina. He had always wanted to visit New York. You spent 45 minutes talking to Matteo about books, about cities, about accidental things. He recommended a restaurant nearby for dinner. He gave you a small book of Borges' short stories, in English translation. He wouldn't accept money for it. Take it, he said. A souvenir from the city that found you. The city that found you. You walked out of the bookshop holding the Borges book, and you felt something you hadn't expected to feel at all today. Grateful. Part 9. The flight home, and what you understood. Your flight back departed at 9:45 p.m. You sat in the airport, eating the best steak you had ever tasted from the restaurant Matteo recommended, and you thought about everything that had happened in the past 36 hours. One wrong number on a gate sign, B14 instead of B41. Such a tiny mistake, and because of that tiny mistake, you had flown over an ocean, landed in a country you had never visited, walked through streets you didn't know, talked to strangers who became briefly your friends, watched a couple dance the tango in the afternoon sun, found a bookshop that felt like it was built just for you, and eaten a dinner so good it made you close your eyes. Your boss had replied to your email. I'm disappointed you missed the conference. We'll talk when you're back. That said, are you okay? You replied, I'm okay. More than okay. I'll explain everything. Barbara from Chicago had messaged you on WhatsApp. You had exchanged numbers on the plane. With a photo. It was a picture of you both, taken by a flight attendant, laughing together in your seats over the ocean. You looked ridiculous. You both looked so happy. You opened the Borges book. The first line of the first story was this: Time forks perpetually toward innumerable futures. You read it 3 times. Every decision, every small, accidental, thoughtless moment, opens a path. Most paths we never see. We walk the planned road and we never know what was on the other side. But today, just this once, a wrong number on a gate sign pushed you down a different road, and it was extraordinary. Part 10. Back to real life, or is it? You landed in Miami at 7:30 a.m. the next morning, 30 hours late. You walked into the arrivals hall looking exhausted, unshaved, wearing the same clothes as yesterday, carrying a laptop bag and a small Argentinian bookshop bag with one book inside. You sat down in a chair near the exit and you made a list on your phone. Not a to-do list, not a work list, just a list. It said, 1. Learn 10 words in Spanish. 2. Try a new restaurant this week, something I have never eaten before. 3. Say yes to something I would normally say no to. 4. Look up from my phone on the subway. 5. Read the Borges book. 6. Go somewhere I have never been, even if it's just a new street in the same city. 7. Remember that B14 and B41 look almost exactly the same. That last one made you smile, because the lesson wasn't really about gate numbers. The lesson was this: the plans we hold so tightly, the schedules we protect so carefully, the routines we build so high, they can shatter in 1 second. One misread number, one announcement on a loudspeaker, one gate agent who smiles and says, "Welcome aboard." And sometimes, not always but sometimes, when the plan breaks, what comes next is better than anything you planned. You stood up, you picked up your bag, you walked outside into the warm Miami morning. Your phone rang. It was your boss. You answered. "Hey," you said, "I have a story to tell you, and I promise you've never heard anything like it." So, what did you learn today? Maybe some new English vocabulary words, like boarding pass, departure, jet bridge, corridor, cobblestones, architecture, currency, routine, extraordinary, accidental. Maybe you learned something about what happens when life surprises you. Maybe you just learned that B14 and B41 are very, very different things. And you should always look carefully. If you are learning English right now, I want to tell you something. Every mistake you make in English, every time you say the wrong word or use the wrong grammar or walk into the wrong conversation, that is not failure. That is a boarding pass to somewhere new. Keep going. See you in the next story.